Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome to the Alien Bros podcast. My name is Richard. This is my friend Josh.
Hello.
He's my co-host, and as you could probably guess, this is a podcast where we talk about UFOs, UAPs, USOs, TUOs, NHIs, all of the acronyms that the government loves to throw around. I'm not going to call them most of the other ones unless I'm reading it out of a document. I'm just going to stick with UFOs because I think that we should go back to calling them UFOs. I think UAPs is dumb. So you can have your thoughts on that, but I like UFOs. Josh, I don't know. You can.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it sounds better UFO, like UAP, and even the act, what it really means, kind of sounds undecipherable.
Exactly.
It's almost like they created it to be confusing.
Exactly. That's my thoughts on it, and it's like because they change it so many times. You have unidentified flying object, then it was unidentified aerial phenomenon, then unidentified anomalous phenomenon because apparently the phenomenon's in the ocean, the sea, all over into the air, whatever. Well, the ocean and the sea are the same thing. Whatever. It's all over the place. It's up and down. So, yeah. It's just a bunch of word salad. But we're going to be covering the hearings today. And yeah, we're a bit late on it, but you know what? We both had a lot of time to watch them. I've watched the hearings several times now. I've read the Immaculate Constellation documents, and we both had plenty of time to digest what happened at the hearings. And we think this is a good jumping off point to start the channel back up. And ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to try to get some answers, which has been the goal of this channel since its inception. I know I've been away for a long time. I'm back now. I know this is a different format style. I'm going to try to obviously make it somewhat in a way similar to the old one, at least in the way that I used to share footage and stuff. This episode, maybe not so much, but in future episodes, when we go over historical events or modern events, things going over on Twitter and whatever have you, then it's going to probably be more similar to the old stuff that I used to make in that regard, except I'm actually in the videos instead of just voiceovering them. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. And with that being said, there's actually 2 episodes. Josh wasn't in those, but they are over on Spotify. If you guys like this and want to see at least a bit more, those are available, and the link will be in the description down below. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and hop into the hearing and discuss exactly what we both thought of it. I mean, we both have similar and different thoughts, as far as I could tell. Josh is a little bit more hardline skeptic on things than I am with UAPs, in all honesty. I mean, like, I'm mainly because I've been like immersed in the subject for, since I was like 10 years old, so I'm like 20 years now. And Josh is he knew of it, but it's not like it was his main thing. Like, he didn't have a UFO channel,
Right.
yeah. So in his case, it's he's got learning to do, but he's learned a lot.
Yeah, I've always believed that like the universe is so vast that there's got to be something out there. So I've always been open to the concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's big. I mean, you got like more planets than sand on the freaking Earth out in the universe or whatever. So I mean,
Yeah, anything we can see just from our Earth with our telescopes doesn't even scratch the surface to how vast the universe is. So the probability of there being something else out there, there has to be something.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the maths. So with that being said, let's go ahead and actually hop into what was discussed at the hearing, starting with Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet. His testimony was before I begin this, actually, I should definitely state that I know a lot of people were disappointed with this hearing, at least people that are hard into this, but it was good for people who aren't like super knowledgeable on UAPs or UFOs, whatever you want to call them. But when it comes to people who have been researching UFOs for forever, obviously we all knew USOs were a thing, and the theories in the UFO community that have gone on for forever, such as them being AI or time travelers, genetically modified, what have you, whatever you want to say, worker drones, whatever. Obviously that's been around for a long time, but not a lot of people that aren't super deep into the UFO theory world are super aware of all of these ideas. And for credible people to come forward to Congress under oath that have government backgrounds with the DoD or the Navy or whatever, it's very nice that there are people that high ranking or credible willing to put their neck on the line and back up the subject. And obviously, there's a lot of people in the field that have put in work that aren't government that have been trying to speak with whistleblowers, including Congress themselves. I mean, they were asking some okay questions. I think there were other questions that should have been asked. And when it comes to Tim Gallaudet, as I was mentioning before, his testimony was more like, well, I saw something, or I didn't see something, but I was on a vessel, and somebody on there, there was a sonar technician told me they saw something, and also explained something about they had to dive to crush depth to avoid what they thought was a torpedo, but turned out to actually be a UAP, which is crazy, especially since I'm sure we all have our own idea of what crush depth is like now after the Titan submersible incident. It definitely puts a new perspective on it. And it's a very risky maneuver. I mean, you're like gambling your life for the most part when it comes to trying to evade whatever you think is going to hit you by going down to the deepest parts of the ocean that your submersible can handle. So very clearly they felt this was a real threat, regardless of whether they knew what it was at the time or not, until after the fact, when it very quickly turned and evaded them. And as far as his other parts to his testimony, there were mentionings of an email, and this email supposedly was sent out to a lot of higher-ups in the military, and it was essentially asking if anybody knew what these objects were that were in their airspace that they were supposed to be operating in or training or whatever. And the next day, the email was gone off of their systems. They were no longer able to view it, and it was very suspicious because they were having near misses with these unknown aircraft or these UFOs. And it gets a lot more interesting, obviously, once we get to Luis Elizondo. And I think that's where the bulk of this particular episode is going to be focusing, is on Luis Elizondo. Obviously, he had the most to say, and I would say that he probably, we know a lot about him since 2017. He is the one who released the 3 DoD FLIR footages from the Pentagon, sort of. I believe the Nimitz video was actually released before he ever came out with it by a rogue officer from the Nimitz who had uploaded it to some UFO forum back in the early 2000s. I don't remember what year exactly. But essentially people researched into it and found out that this video was being hosted by some German site, and they messaged the site, the people that owned it. They said that there was like a back door that they could have used it as a proxy to upload it to hide their identity, basically like a very primitive form of VPN, I guess, to stop the United States government from figuring out who they are. But lo and behold, it's real, and the DoD has verified it. Oh, and we also had the AARO, the new head of AARO, come out and give some statements to a couple of senators, which I don't have a whole lot of faith in AARO. Kind of Project Blue Book 2.0, but that's a different thing. But it was pretty close to when this hearing happened, but they're very stark contrast. I mean, he basically just said that there are a bunch of cases we could explain, a bunch more that we can't, and I don't really know what the point of all this was, other than to try to argue to continue being funded and have a reason to exist. But it's been like that for the past 80 plus years, as the woman whose name I don't know that was interviewing him for the most part said about it. He's definitely better than Kirkpatrick, though. I don't know. Did you actually did you ever hear about Sean Kirkpatrick, the last head of AARO? Or that might not have been something you got to look into.
Oh, no, I hadn't.
Yeah, he was caught doing some kind of a I don't remember exactly what it was. He lied about being at a meeting for Skinwalker Ranch, got caught doing it, and he basically just debunked everything that he possibly could. But supposedly he claims to have never been at this meeting, but he was actually there, and there was a whole, I'm fairly certain that's what it was. There was a whole bunch of conflicts, and nobody trusts him. The dude's obviously just working for somebody that's telling him to say what he's saying. And as far as we can tell, most people's opinions now on AARO have become, it's Project Blue Book 2.0. So that's basically where we're at with them.
Okay.
Yeah. And funnily enough, Luis Elizondo, he actually was in charge of, I believe it was it ATIP or OSAP, when he was still working for the Pentagon. So he was in charge of the program that's basically the same program that Sean Kirkpatrick and the new guy, I don't remember what his name is now, but the new head of AARO, it was the same program back then that AARO was, essentially. Basically, they were researching into UFOs and stuff like that, and sightings from government officials, all that. It's very interesting, the different opinions that Luis Elizondo and Dave Grush, who also, I believe he was the head of the UAP task force at one point or something like that. I'm not entirely certain, but I know he was in charge of something relating to that. And he also came out and said very similar things to Lou, but his was all based on whistleblower accounts for the most part, and couldn't really say much outside of a skiff. I think Lou said at least as much, if not a bit more, maybe, than Grush did in the first hearings, because Lou at least gave some more definitive answers that I think than Grush was able to, because everything Grush had was mainly skiff worthy, he claimed. And I'm a little irritated as to why they didn't ask why the senators didn't ask, or the congressman didn't ask why they couldn't get the whistleblowers into a skiff in the first place. Like, who was preventing them?
Yeah, because they always say I can answer that in a closed session, but when does that closed session happen?
Exactly. Like, it seems like, if they can only answer it in a closed session, and as Nancy Mace said in another interview after the fact, which I don't remember if I might have sent it to you, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. There was an interview with Ross Coldhart that she did the other day, like right after the hearing, where she claimed that it's hard when you get with these people in a skiff. You have some dude with a man bun basically telling you that they're like laughing at you and giving you like no information because you don't know the name of the program to ask for the information. Because like with Immaculate Constellation, for example, she said that the second you get in the skiff, they're going to change the name of that program, and that program is going to be called something else. And since it's no longer Immaculate Constellation and you don't have a need to know, you can't specifically ask, despite the fact you're an elected official.
That's not sketchy at all.
No, but that's government for you, and it's how they've been keeping things secret for the longest time. I mean, at the same time, if you're hiding the existence of extraterrestrial life from the entire world, who has a right to know that we're not alone in the universe and that we're being visited, or whatever it is, even if it's not extraterrestrial life. Some of you have different thoughts on what these UFOs are, but even if, for example, they were, let's just go out on a limb. I don't believe in this personally, but let's just say that they're demons or something. Like, I know that there are some people in the DOD that, because I remember, I know you may have mixed opinions on him, but Tucker Carlson, he apparently spoke with some people at the DOD, and they told him, when he asked about UFOs, they said, "Read your Bible, son," as though he was asking about the devil himself. And interestingly enough, in the Immaculate Constellation documents, it does list, and I want to make a correction for those of you who don't know. The person who apparently submitted the Immaculate Constellation documents, Nancy Mace, was wrong. It was actually Jeremy Corbell in the first page, which is why she said 12 pages instead of 11, which 11 is what we see when Michael Schellenberger posts the documents to a thread through X. And when you actually go and download them, there's only 11. The reason this is because the first page was apparently a cover letter from Jeremy Corbell that had like his socials or something on it, but the actual information was from whistleblowers, and Michael Schellenberger sort of provided it. Apparently, Jeremy was the one who actually submitted it. I don't know the exact background details. I'm not sure how many people actually do, but as far as we know, Jeremy is the one who actually submitted it for the record. So that may be why he was saying, oh, something big is going to happen at this second round of hearings. And a lot of people are saying, well, we're never going to listen to Jeremy Corbell again because he was wrong. And we're never... You got to give him some slack here, though. It's the UFO subject, man. You can't always be right, especially with government stuff like that. Like, government shit's going to be a problem to try to guess. You can't guess what they're going to do. They've been trying to cover this up for 80 years. He was hopeful. He was too hopeful. And I think that now he might have learned to be a little less forthright and hopeful in the future. But I do think there were some things this did achieve. As far as Luis Elizondo, though, he definitely said some things that I found a bit shocking. And Nancy Mace actually said, in a way, more shocking stuff than the whistleblowers did. I mean, Nancy said some really out there
Oh yeah,
stuff.
she did. She said she was on a list. I can see why.
Yeah, that well, apparently the anybody who mentions Immaculate Constellation, if you work in the government, would actually be on a list and be investigated. Apparently, that was the
Wow.
idea. I don't know how many of you guys are aware, but when David Grush, when he actually came out originally in the first round of hearings, there were increased searches on Google, and I don't mean just increased. I mean nobody had searched this before this. It was at 0 on Google's trends. It was a flat line, but Immaculate Constellation, the search term, suddenly spiked like crazy all the way to 100 as soon as David Grush came out. And obviously nobody knows what Immaculate Constellation is yet, because it's a secret compartmentalized program or parent program of a bunch of SAPs in the DoD. So why would they spike? Oh, well, obviously somebody was interested in knowing if Grush had leaked the program. Funnily enough, those searches came from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And if you know anything about UFO history, Hangar 18 or the Blue Room is supposedly where some of these bodies were taken at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base back when the Roswell crash happened, as well as some other crashes. That's obviously a whole different story, but it's very interesting that Immaculate Constellation searches come specifically from the base that's supposed to be heavily related to aliens and UFOs and things like that. As far as what Lou had to say, though, I do think it's quite interesting that he outright stated that yes, we're being visited. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I feel a little weird about the idea that they're threats specifically. Like UFOs in general, like because they're making it out to be like it's a threat. And it seems like this is almost in a way being used to like gain some funding for certain programs for certain defense purpose reasons. And I don't know. I mean, it feels like the topic's being used to oil a war machine a little bit.
Yeah, Lou said like that they weren't really trying to hide themselves and like the maneuvers they were doing when they were being observed. Like that's what he was claiming, and I thought that was like really interesting. And a lot of things that he said directly asked like, "Are there UAP retrieval programs?" And he said, "Yes."
Yeah,
Officially.
that was
And
kind
then
of shocking.
yeah, and then are there programs designed to reverse the technology? And he said, "Yes." And he's a very credible witness that I see. That I'm just I am I'm a skeptic that wants to believe really. And like hearing these things from these very credible witnesses definitely makes you really think, like it really does.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, Lou's not like a perfect human. Like
Right.
there was recently something on Twitter where he was given from somebody he trusted. They gave him like a bad photograph or something that they told him it was legit. I mean, I guess because he trusted these people, he just believed them because I'm guessing they must have had some credibility with him. And then it turns out that it wasn't. And he admitted he was wrong. I mean, he admitted it was a mistake and that it was not purposely done or anything like that because it was eventually called out and figured out that he was incorrectly uh, posting this footage for something it wasn't. And as it turns out, he owned up to it. So it's not like he just was like, no, I insist that this is what it is. Like when he was informed it was wrong, then he admitted it was wrong. He's not going to lie to save his reputation or anything. So I think that does lend a little credence. And some people might use that to flame Lou. I think that Lou has done a lot for this subject so far, whether you love him or hate him. The guy has released the first few videos that are official government UFO or UAP, whatever you want to call them, videos captured by fighter jets. And now the guy's going in front of Congress under oath, willing
Yep.
to put his safety on the line.
Yeah, under oath. Like if he's lying, if he's making this up, making this all hoax, like he goes to prison for a long time, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean perjury is it's not a fun thing to get convicted for. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely not a joke. So as far, and I know he knows this because if you're working for the government and that sort of thing, you probably have a good idea of what happens if you lie under oath. Because I'm sure this isn't his first time being under oath for some reason or another.
We see how careful that they all are about discussing, like things that whether they have privilege to or not. All the times we heard, I have to discuss that in a closed session or even a skiff. So I can't imagine having to cherry pick what you're saying. I feel like it's so easy to make a mistake that lands you in prison.
Yeah, for real. I mean, when you're in front of Congress like this, I really I mean, obviously they're not there under like subpoena. They're there as whistleblowers, but they're still under penalty of perjury. So when you are, like, for example, if you're in a courtroom and you're a witness to something and you are testifying under penalty of perjury and you are found to have perjured yourself, you go to prison for a few years. And I can only imagine something of this magnitude, how the scales would even be worse just because of what it is they're testifying to. And it seems like the people in Congress that have been trying to research into this, they are invested into this and believe there is something here. And I would say that that speaks volumes because they themselves, like Nancy Mace saying that we are, she is, and this is interesting because the whistleblowers didn't bring this up. She asked them, and they didn't know anything about this, or at least Lou wouldn't speak on it if I'm remembering correctly. But she asked specifically, like, are we, or have they heard about any programs to splice human and alien DNA?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that was crazy. But nobody commented on it.
no, nobody wanted to talk on that, but it was definitely interesting, and it was explained the idea was to make humans enhanced with alien DNA to make us better in some way.
Where did that come from?
I don't know.
That was an awful strange question she asked, and then they had no information, but I wonder where she got that from.
Yeah, like, I was wondering that too, because there has to be somebody behind closed doors that brought this up. Like, it wouldn't have just came out of nowhere unless she, like, was doing research into the subject, like, on a public basis. But she said that she was spending a lot of time as well combing over government declassified documents, like thousands of pages of documents over the weekend before the interview with Ross Coldhart, where she was trying to find particular things. She found things about UFOs being transferred and stuff like that, and the ways that things are worded apparently are quite important. At least that's what she said regarding this topic, because they can write a specific word that means something very specific in government speak that may mean something different than what the average person may look at it and think if you're not versed in, like, defense talk. And that I found quite interesting. I mean, it's obviously you should kind of expect it because it's the government. They have to hide things, obviously, and I'm sure, you know, talking in some sort of coded way, you know, it's rudimentary in terms of, you know, keeping things a secret. I mean, we used to make up coded languages when we were in freaking elementary school. I mean, you'd be on the playground, you come up with some nonsense. As far as these documents go, I would like to know what she was reading. I believe she said some of this was CIA, and interestingly enough, it was brought up that the CIA blocked Lockheed Martin from transferring one of these UFOs over to Congress or legislative body, because the CIA essentially had some interest in keeping this from the legislature. At some point, it just gets to be like, you know, when can they actually step in to stop this?
Yeah, you think Congress could really do something if they wanted to.
Yeah.
They ultimately have the supreme power of the whole government if they band together.
Yeah, I mean, they are 1/3 of the government. I mean, I guess if the executive had some say in this as well and they had an opposite take on it, this was also brought up at the hearing, but Trump coming in, apparently people are hoping that he'll stick up to his word and release the UFO documents or files or whatever and let us know what the government actually knows. I mean, he would have that power.
Yeah.
At least I would think.
Yeah, I would think too, because he oversees the whole executive branch, which is where the DOD and everything exists under.
Yeah, my only issue is that, like, for the longest time, and I know this, you could argue this is just a skit, right? But you've seen Jimmy Kimmel, right?
A little bit.
There were episodes where he would have presidents on. I think he had Bill Clinton, George Bush, Obama. Bill Clinton said that he checked, didn't see anything on the UFOs. Apparently that was like the first thing they all did was go look at the UFO files. So Bill Clinton said no, if I'm remembering right. George Bush said no. But, and obviously George Bush was the ex-head of the CIA, or at least senior was, I believe. I don't know about Junior. I'm not super well versed on the history of the Bushes. Obama, and you could say he was joking, and even Jimmy Kimmel made a joke saying that people are going to analyze his facial features after this to hell and back, when he said that he checked And he told Jimmy, no, I didn't see anything, but that's what they tell us to say.
Yeah.
But was he joking? Like, that's the question. Was he actually joking? Or was this like one of those, it sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke? Like a misdirection.
Yeah. Politicians are good at that.
Well, it's like their whole job.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'd like to think of it as maybe he was actually telling the truth to some degree, because I mean, obviously he must know a little more than what he's letting on. I mean, Trump has openly stated in interviews that he had discussions with Top Gun pilots that essentially explained what they saw to him, and it's never been something of huge interest to him for some reason. I'm not quite sure as to why he wouldn't be interested in the subject. I guess he's just got too many things in his life. But as far as like the UFO topic in general goes, I mean, it's a subject that is important to everybody. So
Yeah.
if he releases it, fantastic. And as far as I could tell, it seems like he does somewhat believe that, you know, at least from what he's been told, the witnesses were credible and that there is something there. He said he looked at the JFK documents, but I don't know if he actually... I think he might have said he looked at the Roswell documents and said it was very interesting, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, and I was reading about that the other day.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe there's a good chance there's something there. I mean, nobody believes it was a weather balloon. Let's be real. Nobody actually believes that. I mean, it's very weird. Day one, Roswell Army newspaper says it's a flying saucer. Immediately changed it to weather balloon. Then Project Mogul balloon. And then I think there was a few other revisions afterwards. I don't know where we're at now with the revisions, but it's just different forms of weather balloon at this point. And the idea that it's actually a balloon is just... It discounts like 80 plus witnesses who all saw the same thing. And it just doesn't make any sense. Very similar when they try to discount like the Virginia witnesses. I mean, an entire town in Brazil saw something. And they have a statue of a giant flying saucer now in the middle of Virginia because of that incident.
Wow.
James Fox has a very good documentary on it. If you haven't already seen it, I definitely recommend go and look up the documentary. I believe, I don't remember if it's called The Phenomenon or something like that. But if you look up on YouTube, James Fox, Virginia, Brazil UFO, you can find it. After Nancy got on about talking about the genetic engineering thing, she also brought up the idea that, and I believe Lou somewhat confirmed this a little bit, the idea that it might be AI, that these UFOs are being controlled by. And also the idea that they might be natural, what's the right word, like biological beings that we're seeing, like the jellyfish UAP and stuff. Like they may actually be an entity and not just like a craft.
Yeah, one of the board mentioned that is this a living craft?
Exactly, that's what I was trying to say. I couldn't get the right words. If these craft are alive, even if it's like a small percentage, and say there's some validity behind like all of this, right? Say aliens are here, these weird, and let's just say that these weird craft that are like living are unrelated. I mean, maybe they are related, but let's just, for the sake of you know, being devil's advocate, let's just say that they're not, and say they're a separate thing, and say that there's like extra dimensional entities and all these ideas that people have had. Maybe all of these things are real. Why would we be being visited by so many different things? Like, I'm gonna be honest, the idea that these UFOs are in a way their own being, I just, it's so weird for me to think of it like this, because for the longest time, when I think of a UFO, I think of just a spaceship, basically piloted by an extraterrestrial, or even, I'd even accept like a future human or something like that. Something that's not from here specifically. And the idea that they may be living entities that we are seeing then begs the question, is this what David Grush was referring to? Do we somehow know what these are? Was Grush, when he specifically said that they might be extra dimensional, was he saying that these things are extra dimensional? And I brought this up to Josh the other night. I don't know, did you get a chance to look into those DMT studies?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, I had the crazy thought, right? What if these living craft are actually DMT entities, maybe, or something along those lines, something from another dimension. Something that information theory, string theory, and all this stuff does sort of allow for, if this is some sort of simulation, or maybe there's some kind of developer of this world or something. Who knows? I'm just throwing ideas out, right? But let's just say, like, these entities are here for whatever reason and have come from an entirely different dimension, and they are here spying on us for whatever the fuck reason. I don't know. Whatever you could think of. And there's ETs as well. Let's just say there's also aliens that have come here as well, right? You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's both. Because Grush didn't want to rule out either one. And it doesn't seem like the Immaculate Constellation documents, AARO, or any of these other programs, or the whistleblowers themselves wanted to rule out those ideas of what they might be. Obviously, somebody in the government knows. And I think Congress knows who knows, but they can't do anything about it. Because it seems oddly specific at this point that they would be asking questions like, you know, the genetic engineering questions and stuff like that they're asking. Which reminds me, I recently discovered, I was talking to Josh about this before the podcast, and I discovered this. I was watching an Area 52 video, and if you haven't watched Area 52, they make some really good content. I'd recommend checking them out when you get the chance. But I was watching a video where somebody mentioned that, similar enough to the 4chan whistleblower that they were covering in their recent series, which you could go check out for yourselves, there was a Reddit whistleblower of a person who claimed to be a microbiologist. In this write-up that they did on Reddit, they claimed that they were splicing alien and human DNA. And there's another reason I found that guy interesting, more so than just the fact he sounded very well versed in microbiology. But that particular part where he was explaining that this was possible links up very well with what Nancy Mace was talking about. Maybe in passing, I've heard somebody maybe bring up the idea in the past. But generally, when you hear about humans and aliens having their DNA mixed, it's usually the aliens doing it to us. Like, they're taking our sperm or eggs or something, and then they're mixing it with their own, you know, their own genetics to make a hybrid alien human thing. Usually it's some sort of, their theories that run all the way to the point of, the government's working directly with the aliens and allowing them to use us for software, basically, or genetic software, to keep their race going because they can't reproduce, or some other crazy ideas. But the idea of it being in reverse is very strange. I mean, yes, we have the ability to clone with compatible genetics. We've had that ability for a while. It's not legal to do, at least with humans. I believe it's legal to do with animals, I think. Hey, let me see. Does my wife know? Hey, Claire, I forget. Do you know if it's legal to clone animals? Because you know more about that than me.
I think it is in some areas, but not entirely.
Okay, so maybe it's on a state-by-state thing or something like that. You don't know, do you?
No, I know they cloned the sheep once.
Yeah, I know that too. What was her name? Dory or
No,
something?
a lady on TikTok cloned her cat.
So maybe it is legal then.
Oh yeah, I feel like I heard of that. They cloned their old pet to kind of get their same pet again. I think I have heard of that.
Yeah, but the issue with cloning is it's not going to be exactly the same. Like, the personality is going to be vastly different. It's just going to look like the cat you had before.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, either way, it's just interesting. At least I would say that, supposedly we're, for some reason, splicing the human DNA with the alien DNA on our end as well. I mean, I would think that would fall borderline illegal. I mean, I guess the government can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you guys are aware of the way that Area 51's existence was revealed. I don't even know if have I told you about this? I might have told you about this.
I think so.
Yeah, with the 9 guys who got sick when they were burning jet. They were burning like stealth fighter, some kind of parts and paint and stuff that had this like this coating of something on the metal or whatever that they were spraying jet fuel all over it, and these 2 football field sized pits at Area 51, and they were burning it and they were inhaling the fumes, and apparently they got super sick to where like their skin was like falling off and stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they sued the United States government to try and get answers as to what it was they were burning so that the doctors could treat them, because the doctors didn't know what was killing them. They don't know what the poison was. So when they sued, 7 of the men were dead by the end of the suit. Only 2 lived, and they lived about 2 weeks after the suit was done. And during the suit, they lost because the United States government, they did admit that Area 51 was real, that it was a legit base, because obviously they worked there and the government wasn't acknowledging the fact the place existed in the first place to try to get around the lawsuit, but they were forced eventually in court by the lawyers to actually admit this. However, they said that constitutional law, or the Constitution of the United States, does not apply to Area 51 because this is a matter of national security, and Area 51 is its own country within the United States, and because of this, we don't have to tell you anything.
Wow.
So tough luck, y'all die. That's what happened. You guys can look this case up yourself. I'm sure if you Google it hard enough, you'll find it. I'm sure it's not going to be very easy, but it's out there. And because of the fact that they can get away with things like that, it makes it even more difficult. So let's just say, right, everybody says, oh, they probably don't even have the UFOs at Area 51 anymore. It's probably not even there. But it's a matter of national security, right? So who's to say that they simply do have them there, but don't have to say anything to anybody inside the government because it's its own country and doesn't have to listen to the laws of the United States government. So even if Congress goes, hey, show us what's at Area 51, show us where the craft are, we know where they're, let's see this, they could say, no, you have no power here because we're our own nation within the United States, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that episode of Family Guy, right, where Peter found a Pretoria. Except in this case, it's the government founding a new base, I guess. Back to the actual hearing. I feel like I've gotten a little bit off track with this. The rest of what Lou said, most of it was, oh, I need this, I need to be in a closed environment. But for the most part, what he said, he was confident in. He did confirm, yes, they're here. Yes, they're in our water. Tim Gallaudet said the same. Yes, they're in the sky. And there's also another piece of footage released from AARO that I saw. I need to dig into that a little more. Maybe I'll post that in a future episode with us where we can review it. It's a clip where I think the first 5 minutes or so are basically just worthless, but it's a FLIR camera footage from, I believe, a drone. And it shows something flying around Mount Etna, a volcano, as it was smoking up in the air. And I haven't shown you that yet, but I'll send it to you so you can get a look at it too, and we can go over it on another episode later. But AARO is, in an attempt to be more transparent, releasing footage. And if I had to guess, they probably know what this is, or they're going to try and say that it's nonsense, because that's just what AARO does. But it is interesting that they're at least releasing stuff that they're openly saying that they don't know what it is yet. And I do think it's a step forward from Kirkpatrick saying everything is balloons. I think we've covered a lot of what Lou had to say, except for maybe the part about artificial intelligence and these craft likely being, or at least some of these craft likely being artificially controlled by artificial intelligence, not made by us, obviously. What if these extraterrestrials have actually gone the route that we have, and these aren't even, like, what if these are like biological AI or something along those lines, you know? Like, what if
he mentioned like our concept of life has changed. We used to think it involved, had to be biological, but not, are involved having to have air. But now we know there's anaerobic organisms and bacteria that don't need air to exist.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah,
and also that thing about photosynthesis and all that stuff. I mean, I'm sure he's more versed on it than we are, because neither one of us have degrees in microbiology or anything like that.
No.
But it's definitely interesting. I mean, me and him do know a bit about growing plants, so I mean, at least with photosynthesis and stuff like that, we know what it is. But as far as what he's saying, I think he said chemosynthesis was something else that they can use. I don't know 100% what it means. I can Google it. In my mind, it sounds like something to do with radiation, like they're feeding off of radiation. So I don't know what particular life he's talking about that's able to do that. And you could correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm going off what it sounds like to me. I might be totally off base with that and just not know what chemosynthesis is. I don't know. Do you know what it is?
No.
Yeah, I mean, we can Google it real quick. Let's see. Can we figure out what it is real quick? Chemosynthesis is a biological process where organisms create food, organic matter, by using chemical energy from inorganic compounds like hydrogen sulfide or methane instead of sunlight as in photosynthesis. Essentially, it's the process of making food using chemicals as an energy source, typically occurring in environments where sunlight is absent, like in deep sea hydrothermal vents. Oh, so this is very similar. I said something about this in a video on this channel a long, long time ago. And I think it was because I was referring to Saturn, I believe, being covered in methane. And I gave the idea of, like, what if there were creatures that could actually use something like methane or hydrogen, like some sort of chemical we don't understand in some process to make life in a different way, or at least survive off of it. Like, what if there was something that could do that? I guess they've discovered that they can.
Yeah, chemosynthesis is a term, so there must be organisms that use that in these hostile environments.
If there are creatures that can use that, shouldn't that somewhat rewrite entirely our idea of how life, at the very minimum, sustains itself, but like maybe even could be created? One way that I'm fairly certain life could be created, obviously, is if like these aliens were at one point in their history more similar to us, created AI like we're doing. AI went rogue, or they made something, now this is going to sound ridiculous, but made something similar to like Perfect Cell from Dragon Ball, right? Or like an artificial biological entity, right? But instead it's more like worker bees. But they have like a hive mind, right?
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and they use them to do menial tasks, like how humans are lazy. Maybe they're even more lazy, like the real aliens, and don't actually come here and just send these AI biological worker bees. Maybe they're like genetically engineered AI, and that's actually what's visiting us. Like technically still aliens, but not the aliens that we think they are, in a way. I have heard that before, but like if that's the case, suddenly the artificial intelligence idea makes a little more sense. And I guess it would make sense to say, if you're an advanced race, why risk it yourself to come here to the hostile planet of the apes? Why not just send your artificial, AI biological creatures to go do the exploring instead?
Especially if it takes them a long time to get here from a distant planet. AI doesn't die maybe with their technology if that were to exist.
Yeah, I mean that would be my general idea, is something like that. Like why risk it? You could. AI obviously could exist, but like if they also were able to make the DNA, of these creatures like perfect in a way, kind of like Perfect Cell again. I mean, like you could genetically modify them with the right levels of advanced tech to like make them like a perfect entity.
We hear a lot of these like UFO, UAPs or whatever. There's monitoring. I heard of this one where on Navy's radar. I sent that to you the other day.
I saw it.
And they were just like, they saw it on the radar on an official Navy vessel all around the ship, and it's like they were just monitoring, and then they just disappeared. So if that was like this AI thing, like they never seem to engage from the reports, so they're just observing, and so it's just kind of like observers that are gathering data, and one day maybe going to send it back, because maybe it takes a long time still to get back to wherever they're from, and they're here for the next millennia just gathering data. I don't know, it's just a thought I had.
And it's totally possible, but there is one thing I think that does mess with that a little bit, is that there have been a lot of reports that they were able to mess with our nuclear silos.
Yeah, even Lewis said that in the hearing.
Yeah, that they were able to turn our nukes on and off. And
yeah, he even said they were able to interfere with our nuclear capabilities. He straight up said that in the hearing, which,
I had heard that way before the hearings back in the day. I'd heard stories of they launched an ICBM, like a test or something, and a UFO showed up. There wasn't actually a warhead on it, but it showed up and knocked it out of the sky, disarmed it, and sent it back down to Earth with, nothing happening, just as a show of force. And also another time where apparently 10 of our nukes were activated and the countdown began by one of these craft, and then as it was about to hit one, the craft shut all of them back off, as if it was just showing us like, hey, we could destroy you with your own technology if we really wanted to. So part of me feels like, yeah, there is reconnaissance for sure of our advanced tech. Like they're trying to keep an eye on us and keep tabs. And also that there was, they're very interested when we transport things like UFOs and things like, they're very interested in like the nukes and things like that. And I believe that it was mentioned that we attempted to transport to try to draw them in. We transported nuclear warheads and 18 out of 18 attempts to do this, a UFO showed up every time, like it knew. So that makes me wonder: are they watching us for our own good, or are they watching us for their, like, because they have nefarious plans, or are they watching us because, you know, in the future, you know, maybe they want to prevent us from blowing ourselves up, or maybe they just don't want us going out into space to blow them up, or maybe it's a little bit of both, or maybe it's actually just reconnaissance and they're preparing for an invasion, as the government claims they're worried about. I have a very hard time believing it, though, because they've been here so long. I mean, how much more information do you need, and why are you letting us advance further? If you wanted to take us out, why not just do it now?
Yeah, they never seem to engage, like I was saying. Like, they have such advanced tech. Why wouldn't they have made contact at the very least?
Yeah, I don't understand that. Like,
yeah, that's what kind of throws me off from it all. Like, it's always fuzzy pictures. It's always no contact and disappearing. Like, how come? I mean, but apparently, we have some of their crafted materials in our possession. Lewis and the Hearing was heavily, indicating that.
And there's also the idea that we do apparently have a lot of, like, 4K resolution footage in the government's files, that they actually do have these things, but they aren't releasing it for some reason. They don't want us to see that.
Yeah, it's just like they made that point in the hearing, like this, like, we all understand withholding information for national security, but this isn't for national security. If anything, knowing would be better for national security.
Yeah, because then we'd be able to actually, have a more of a look at, like, say, wouldn't it be somewhat beneficial if the public, at least in general, knew what these things were and saw them in the sky and could report them to the right people in the government so they could investigate this with the right authorities? Why keep this a secret and just make the people who say they see them look crazy? Doesn't that defeat the purpose of calling it a national security threat?
We have a right to know, as Americans, know human beings, that these things exist. I mean, we pay a lot of money to taxes into our government every year. Like, we deserve this information.
I agree with you 100% on that.
Just whatever they know, like, whatever data that they have, like, because obviously there's enough data to fund these secretive programs and departments that we're all paying for unknowingly. So there must be something that they can share.
Yeah, and as far as, like, the data itself goes, I mean, I can understand not just, if they have these craft, right, in their possession, they're using them to make weapons or whatever, I can understand not giving that up for the sake of, like, not wanting China, Russia, or any of these other crazy enemy states to have the knowledge of what we have. But, like, the very existence of them shouldn't be kept secret. I mean, the nuclear codes are top secret. Nobody knows what they are outside of a select few people of the government, the president. However, we all know nuclear weapons exist. So why can't it be like that for UAP or UFOs or whatever? Why can't it be like that for whatever these things are? These craft or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, we don't need to know the exact technology, but if they could at least share, like, yes, we found craft, or
At least tell us what was in the craft. Why is that secret?
Answer the age-old question if you have that answer. Or at least just show what you have. Like, yeah, we found craft. Maybe not show all the weapons they've diagnosed from it, so that, that our enemies don't get wind of that either. Exactly.
I mean, obviously the enemies don't need this information, but I don't see how the enemies stand to benefit just by knowing what was piloting the UFOs. Like, how does that help them? What are they going to do? Just because they can find out that it was an alien flying it, that doesn't mean, even if we told them where the alien is from, that doesn't give them the ability to contact and try to make a coup on the United States or something, or work with these beings to try to bring us down. Like, why would... It doesn't make sense to me. I can't fathom why, if these things exist and we have the bodies, we have the proof, why can't they just do what, an actual thing? I want to make the comparison to Mexico, but I know we're going to get cake jokes. But why can't they just show us? At least show us pictures of an alien or the body or whatever. Or maybe just... You don't even have to bring, right? Obviously, everybody wants to see the craft, but, like, you don't even have to do that. You don't have to roll the craft in the middle of Congress or whatever to prove it's real. Just bring one of the bodies. Bring a naked alien, nothing on it, No secretive technology that the alien could have been using, because who knows, maybe the alien had some kind of weird, highly advanced suit on when you found it, or some kind of weird photon laser gun, or something weird. Who knows? Yeah, maybe it was wearing something like that. Just, who cares? Bring the body, dead or alive, bring the alien into Congress, prove it's real, end of story, the debate is over. We will leave it alone. The answer is then in front of us. Just tell us what they are, where they came from. That's it. Everybody's happy at that point. You've given us the truth. At the very least. Instead of obfuscating and lying to the very people that are elected to represent us. Don't do that, man. I know that my opinion is going to do probably fuck all when it comes to what the government does. But it would be so easy to shut every single last one of us up if they did that. And if there's nothing, then why act like this in the first place? Why be secretive about everything? And why lie? Why obfuscate in the first place? If there's truly nothing there, then prove it. There is no reason to hide it. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. Anyway, we have one more person I want to cover with this. We got Michael Schellenberger. Actually, well, technically there was also that guy who I had never heard of until the hearing, Gold, the NASA guy. We didn't really bring him up yet. And we're not going to touch much on that. He's just a NASA shill. I don't know what he's talking about, NASA being the most transparent agency ever. I mean, people literally call them never a straight answer for a reason. But he was there to just shill for NASA. Try to get as much money as he could, obviously, for his ex-organization that he's not even at anymore. For some reason, I don't quite... He's got to still have some kind of tie, man. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Why do we need an AI to go over footage that NASA has captured over the years when NASA should already know what's in it? It doesn't make sense to me. But, yeah, dude was just basically a shill, trying to get money from the government for NASA to fund, more space stuff with NASA. But under the guise of, let's destigmatize, talk about the UAP thing. I appreciate that part, I guess, but as far as being there and just begging for funding, it felt very shill-like to me. Schellenberger, aside from the Immaculate Constellation and his whistleblowers, I don't think there was a whole lot to really say about the guy. His information wasn't any more groundbreaking than Lou's. Oh, another thing I forgot to bring up about Lou, actually. I thought it was very interesting when Nancy Mace, I believe it was, asked, was it her or who was it that asked, if any of them were aware of Immaculate Constellation or a similar program. Everybody said no except for Lou. He said he can't confirm or deny it.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that's government speak for saying, like, yeah, I know, but I can't tell you here.
Yeah.
So, and that was about crash retrieval programs. So I kind of wondered, does Lou actually have more information than he's leading on? Is it a possibility?
Well, he was forbidden from talking about crash retrieval programs.
Yeah, he signed an NDA or something.
Yeah, so why would you sign an NDA if there wasn't crash retrieval programs?
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason to shut him up if it doesn't exist.
Right.
That was the last thing I wanted to bring up with Lou. And the final thing I think we need to touch on, other than the documents themselves, which we might briefly go over here in a minute, obviously was Michael Schellenberger. The only thing I found significant about him personally is the fact that he wouldn't specify at all who his sources were. I understand protecting your sources, but to just lend a little more credibility, it might have been good to at least give like a hint, at least of what department they could have come from. I don't know if that's enough information for them to be completely exposed just because of, a department, unless they're like the only person in said department. But supposedly these people have had hands on these crafts, so it makes me wonder, what department is this? Or are they... And it was also specified that some of these people may or may not be working for companies like Lockheed Martin. I've said that for a long time, that it makes sense ever since I made my videos about Robert Bigelow on this channel. Way back in the day, when I said that he was housing UFO metals, it was back 2018, I believe. I said that it made sense that the government would avoid Freedom of Information Act requests by paying private contractors like Bigelow Aerospace and Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, all these people, to hold on to these UFOs so that we can't get the information out of the government, because they're then not legally obligated to give it to us because a private company holds the information. Still at a government base, probably just leased out of a hangar by one of these companies, but nevertheless, still not actually government property anymore, so they don't have to tell us about it. But as far as that goes, Schellenberger, there wasn't a whole lot to gain from him, I don't think.
He did say that the government has like 4K video and photographs of these craft, not just these fuzzy ones that we get.
Yeah, and so did Lou. I think both of them said the same thing about that.
Yeah.
So, at the very least, we do know that, if anything, there is better photographs available that we just don't have access to as the public. And maybe we do in the public. Maybe there is some stuff that's legit that people thought was fake because it's too good to be true. Because that's the problem with the UFO community, right? If it's shot on a potato, people think, well, it's such shit quality, we can't tell what it is, you know? So obviously it's nothing. And if it's shot in 4K and it looks pristine and amazing and it's something out of this world, oh, that's CGI. That's fake, man. That's not real. There's no way that's real. And that's where the problem is, because what if it is real? What if there is something... Now, obviously, you could see signs of CGI in a video. It's not like we don't know what CGI can look like.
It's harder than ever now with AI. Like, you can craft anything you want now.
Yeah, that is true. AI is a big problem.
Yeah.
Especially, like, deep fakes and stuff. You know, that's a big issue. But as far as, like, you know, some of these videos go, there could very well be a few legit, super high-quality videos out there that people just wrote off as fake that were actually real. It's hard to say, but the problem is, how do you know which ones they are? Our own community has muddied the waters so much by releasing fake videos for cash, for, you know, a quick cash grab or clout on the internet, that it's actually poisoned the well so much that we can no longer trust anything that's put in front of us, no matter how legitimate it may look or what the background is. And that's a problem, because we're never going to get answers if we can't trust the people giving them to us.
Yeah, and you never know who's going to be a hoaxer. You can't just look at them and believe they're not a hoaxer. Like, I was looking into the Cash Landrum incident, and used to think these, like, 50-year-old ladies, like, oh, they can't possibly be hoaxers. But, you know, I wouldn't put it past anybody, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, anybody could lie for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter who they are, or their gender, their age, their race, anything along those lines. Any human is capable of lying. And when it comes to this topic, I think that in an interview I listened to actually with Bob Lazar and Art Bell, I think that Bob Lazar said something extremely true in this interview. That his higher-ups, when he asked how they keep this a secret, they told him that this is the easiest secret in the world to keep because everybody just looks at you like you're nuts if you bring it up anyway. We don't have to do anything. That statement is truer today than even back then with the internet and how badly things have been muddied up in the UFO world. And I think that we need to stop that. And I know just me saying that's not going to put a stop to that, but I think that us as a community should advocate to put a stop to that. If we try our best to, you know, at least encourage people to not do this, obviously it's probably a futile effort, but we could at least try. I mean, what else can we do to at least attempt to undo the disinformation that's been thrown in front of us for so long now? A lot of people hate Richard Doty, but there's a lot of people in the UFO community that aren't even government that act like Richard Doty now. And I think that that's an issue. And we'll do a video on Richard Doty in the future as well. But that's not for today. And I don't like Richard Doty. I'll start with that off now. But I just wanted to close out, I think, with Michael Schellenberger and what he had to say, and point to the fact that I think that the people in Congress actually, in some cases, said much more substantial things than even the whistleblowers themselves had to say from their own things that they've learned. And I would very much like to see what happens in the future going forward. I want to see how Trump handles this whole situation. I want to see if he actually releases everything he claims he's going to release. And I want to know why the government killed JFK as well, because I've heard multiple things, other than it just being like either mob or CIA or whatever. And there's also rumors that he was going to release the UFO files like a week before that, and then because he had some UFO experience or something like that, and then they killed him off for that. There's so many different rumors as to why this could have happened. And I don't know if it's something like that, because Trump said himself that if you knew it, I knew that, you know, you wouldn't tell anybody either. And I believe that he's not the only person who said that who would be in the know. I do think that this could have made a little more headway. I think we could have at least gotten some better evidence in. But I do think the testimony is substantial when it at least comes to convincing people who aren't generally super well versed in the topic. With that being said, expect another episode soon. Before we go, I do want to go over real quick, just for your guys' sake who haven't read Immaculate Constellation's documents, I want to go over the types of saucers types of UFOs at the very least real quick, very quickly before we wrap up. Just because I want to give you guys an idea of, especially if you're new to this, what to look out for in the sky if you don't actually know what a UFO would look like, or UAP as Congress is calling them. Maybe that's stuck with you more than UFO at this point, who knows. Sphere or orb, that's the first one on the list. Sizes range from small objects to those several meters in diameter. Capable of stationary hovering and rapid acceleration. Speeds surpassing conventional aircraft have been noted. These are all from the Immaculate Constellation documents, by the way. They often lack conventional signals such as heat trails. Electromagnetic effects go on military electronics reported. Varied with gray/metallic, grayish blue, white/white yellow, and red or orange red being prevalent. Those are the colors. Surface details range from completely smooth and reflective to having visible protuberances, appendages, concavities, and openings. High maneuverability, including abrupt direction changes and the ability to hover, often observed to fly in complex geometrical formations and operate in tandem. Occasional disturbances in cloud formations and heat wave contrails have been reported, and close observers report feelings of unease and of electromagnetic device malfunctions, something also typical, I would say, with pretty much any UFO sighting in history, especially abductions. You always hear about like radios and cars shutting off, things like that with flying saucers and stuff. Anyway, yeah, 2, we have the disc or saucer. The size can range from a few meters to over 20 meters in diameter. The speed can exhibit capabilities for both hovering and high-speed flight and often make sudden sprints. Signatures, radar detection varies. Visual sightings more common. Some reports include a humming sound. Colors are metallic silver or gray, as is common, though some have been reported as emitting light or changing color. Variations include smooth featureless surfaces to those with visible domes or segmented panels. That's the surface details. Behaviors, sudden vertical ascents, hovering, and silent operation. Some reports indicate the ability to become invisible or blend into the sky, and their unique emissions, instances of electromagnetic interference in nearby devices and vehicles, which does sort of match up with the corona that Bob Lazar claimed that the sport model flying saucer he said he worked on emitted at the bottom, a slight corona with a hum. And atmospheric phenomenon, visual disturbances such as shimmering air or sudden fog formation. Next up is the oval or tic tac, one that everybody's got to be familiar with by now because of the Nimitz incident, the tic tac fighter pilot footage and all that stuff. So I'm sure everybody's probably seen that footage at this point. Typically 6 to 40 meters, maintains proportional width and height. High speed travel, distant acceleration have been frequently reported, and no sonic boom. Visual identification often notes a lack of contrail, white or silver in color, uniformly smooth surface with occasional reports of protuberances that could be sensors, propulsion elements, weapons, or unknown technology. And the behavior of the craft is observed ability to hover and then accelerate suddenly. Some encounters describe them maintaining stable positions despite high winds. Then there is the triangular craft, or as many of you would know, the TR-3B, which is usually claimed to be a government reproduction vehicle. There is a patent that the government actually has publicly on the TR-3B, which you can look up yourself. It's a magnetic anti-gravity triangle that obviously uses anti-gravity magnets to fly. Size is medium to large size, ranging from F-16 to football field size. Very similar to like the Phoenix Lights incident, the mass sighting of those. I don't know. Did you ever hear about the Phoenix Lights?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whenever you get back and have the chance, you should definitely look into that. It's a very interesting case. I would look up I Know What I Saw by James Fox, and you'll get a pretty good idea of that case. It's a documentary. It's free on YouTube.
Nice.
The speed is capable of slow, precise movement as well as rapid acceleration to speeds beyond conventional aircraft. Often reported to emit a soft humming sound, may affect electronic devices within a certain proximity, and the colors are usually black or dark gray, sometimes with white lights at the corners and a central red light. Reports of twinkling stars across surface. The boomerang/arrowhead wingspans can exceed 30 meters, especially for boomerang-shaped UAPs. Arrowheads typically range from F-16 size to slightly larger. Speeds exhibited are both gliding at low speeds and the capacity for high-speed flight. Visual sightings often note a slow, silent flight profile, typically dark, blending with the night sky, though some reports include glowing edges or tips. Smooth surfaces with a notable aerodynamic design. The arrowhead types show more angular features, known for silent operation and the ability to execute tight turns, and also seem to emit spherical balls of light from the center line, which partially envelops the UAP during maneuvers, causing electromagnetic interference with local technologies. And finally, number 6, one we talked briefly about earlier, the irregular/organic UAP, or the jellyfish UFO. Highly variable from small compact forms to larger, more sprawling structures. Movements range from slow drifting to rapid acceleration, often unpredictable. Some reports include unusual sounds or the absence of expected aerodynamic noise. Electromagnetic effects are common, often described with bioluminescent qualities or shifting colors, particularly for floating brain or jellyfish types. Can you imagine that, though? Just going outside and you just see a freaking floating brain with tentacles in the air. You remember that episode of Billy and Mandy? Have you ever watched?
No, but I think of Mars Attacks.
Oh yeah, that movie was that was a movie.
Yeah, they had big brains.
Yeah, I don't remember that one dude from the casino or whatever just punching him out. That was funny as hell. But yeah, no, there was an episode of the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy where this giant space brain came down with tentacles and started eating people's brains. You know, now it's starting to sound a little bit like it might have been some kind of a spoiler. I don't know, man. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, highly variable from small compact forms to larger, more sprawling structures. Movements range from slow drifting to rapid acceleration, often unpredictable. Some reports include unusual sounds or absence of expected aerodynamic noise. Electromagnetic effects are common, often described with bioluminescent qualities or shifting colors, particularly for floating brain or jellyfish types. Descriptions vary widely. For smooth, fluid-like surfaces to complex, articulated structures. I just realized I read those first 4 already, but whatever. Now you guys know twice. Those are the most interesting aspects of the probably most interesting UFO on here, other than maybe the classic saucer. So, do with that information what you will. There is a lot here. Hopefully in the future we get more information. But that's what we've got for now. And that's the basics of what these documents say to look for, other than the fact that it mentions the reverse engineering programs or, you know, crash retrievals, what have you. But as far as what to look out for, those are characteristics to look out for. If you see something you don't recognize in the sky and it matches up with one of these sets of characteristics, film it. High def as you can. That's about all we got for you for this video. And I hope you guys enjoyed. First episode of the Alien Bros podcast. And as I said, my name is Richard. This is Josh, and
Josh, good to chat.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys again in the next episode. Oh, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, tap the bell, all that good stuff. We appreciate that. Helps us out. Also check out our sponsor. Link down in the description. Factor 75. It would really help support the channel, and it would also get you some healthy meals for an affordable price. And with that being said, actually, bye now.